And this is quite interesting, mashallah, because in the series we receive questions almost from all over the world. We see questions from Kashmir, from the US, from everywhere, mashallah. So this question is from Mexico. The sister says, and she has several questions. My son asks, why do we move our finger in the tashahud? At-tashahud is saying ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, or reciting at-tahiyyat, the Durud Sharif, whether in the middle of the prayer, the middle tashahud, or towards the end and before taslim. Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, used to point with his index finger. He would fold the rest of the fingers and point with his index finger, and he would say, إنها لأشد على الشيطان من الحديد. So this hadith is narrated by Nafi', who is serving Abdullah ibn Umar, and is collected by Imam Ahmad. Abdullah ibn Umar كان أشبه الناس بالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He resembled the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم most. He used to copy him in everything that he used to do. So in pointing out with his finger, and he used to stare at it. So he would point while sitting, whether in the middle tashahud or in the last tashahud, and he will stare at it, look at it throughout the sitting, and while he was reciting at-tahiyyat to the end. And he said the illah, or the effective reason why I do that, he said because it is harder against Satan than an iron rod. As far as it words of a shaitan, it repels Satan in the prayer. Wa'il ibn Hujr, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated also in a hadith which is collected by Imam Ahmad, that he have seen the Prophet ﷺ pointing with his index finger in the prayer. Later on, he have seen the companions used to pray, and whenever it was cold, he would see their clothes like moving due to moving their fingers beneath the shawl or the clothes where they covered up due to extreme cold. Bottom line, it is a confirmed sunnah to point with the index finger while sitting for the tashahud, whether in the middle or the last. And I mentioned earlier the effective cause. There is another very important cause, which is we would like to learn that the acts of worship are all tawqifiyya. Tawqifiyya means have been prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to pray in this fashion, to give zakah in this rate, to fast from this time to that time, to perform hajj according to this setup of manasik. So we don't have a say in it. That's why we make ruku', we make sujood, we pray certain number of rak'ahs, and we recite here Quran. While in ruku' we cannot recite Quran, nor in sujood, we get to do dua in sujood. So this setup is called tawqifi. It's a wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we adhere to it. Also, there is a great difference of opinions between the scholars with regards to when to point, when to lower it down, when to move it, and whether to the right and the left versus up and down. All of these differences are personal ijtihadat of the fuqaha. Like Imam Malik says, for instance, you move it right and left. The rest say you point to it, and if you move it up and down. These differences and hayat and forms do not have a reference. Rather, these are all ijtihadat, and it doesn't affect the validity of the prayer. The closest to the truth is to keep pointing with your finger as long as you are reciting at-tashahud. For instance, Imam Abu Hanifa says, only when you come to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha, then you raise your finger and you fold it when you say illallah. While Imam Shafi'i says the opposite. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says, every time you mention the word Allah, you raise your finger. And in the narration of Imam Ahmad, Wa'il ibn Hujr, he narrated, يَدْعُو بِهَا وَيُحَرِّكُهَا, as long as he's making dua. And at-tashahud, it's all about dua. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. This is dua. So it is okay to point out throughout the entire tashahud, as I mentioned earlier.